Right, in this demo I'm going to be looking at brushwork, and we're back in the village of New Bethesda with this lovely little composition that we can work from. So I've set out a rough sketch, and just as a guideline based on the studies I've done, and straight into the blocking in the darks, which you're quite familiar with by now, I'm sure. So we're going to speed through parts of the process and slow down for the brushwork bits, where I want to just discuss some of the brushwork techniques that I'm using in this painting. But obviously in this blocking in, we're using a diluted blue, ultramarine blue, bit of burnt sienna, and then into the lights, starting with the sky, a warm titanium white with a touch of ultramarine blue, and just getting a feel for the blocking in, and then the focal point, which will be at the end of this path, and the little house in the distance, and the light on the road going by. At this stage I'm using a fine hair brush, oil painting brush, but as I get into the thicker brushwork, particularly in middle and foreground, I'll be using a bristle brush and getting some textured paint into those close-up areas. Into the middle value parts, the distant hill, getting that in quickly. There's quite a lot of light on that, but it's also cooler obviously than in the foreground, so I'll be keeping an eye on those color temperatures. And I want a nice detail blocking in, so but into the path, a bit more thicker paint, using a size 6 bristle brush, in this case a full bit, and a bit of cooler temperature paint at the end of the path. That's just to help to bring the path down a bit so it doesn't look like we're going uphill. And I wanted to just stress the marks I'm putting in here. It's short, deliberate brushwork, varying direction, varying the angle, getting quite a lot of paint on the brush so I can put down a good amount of paint on the first stroke, turn the brush over, put some more paint. Brush strokes aren't overly blended. It's more of putting it down in the spot, curving it or dragging it in the direction that I think is suitable for that particular mark. So I'm trying to think about the brush strokes and not just haphazard, and I'm not just filling in paint for the sake of it. I'm trying to think about the brushwork and not losing the brush mark. This is not a perfect science, of course. I will be going over some brushwork and developing marks, but as long as I've got my thoughts engaged and having some sort of idea and purpose, things go much better. The paint goes where it should, and the painting develops almost on its own. So yeah, into this wall, it's a cool temperature color. It's in shadow, and we'll go through that. I'm back onto a finer hair brush. Remember, in the shadow, the paint should be thinner than the paint used in sunny areas. that difference in thickness of paint and texture all helps to accentuate the mood, whether it's in the shadow and cool or in the sunny areas and bright. You use paint and brushwork to accentuate those areas in different ways. Right, so keep that in mind. And finishing off the path, it's now just blocking it in, and the path it's sort of been indented through long usage, so I use concave brush strokes in that path area, which will try and emphasize that natural situation in the path itself. Finishing off the blocking in, warms and cools, lights and darks. A lot of the darks disappear in this stage, so that is why it's important to come back later on and re-establish those darks in your second or third layers of the painting. So nearly done with the blocking in, and hopefully you've seen a variety of brushwork to get to this point. It's not the completion of the painting, but we've made good progress.